I'm 71 years old, and I've spent nearly 5 decades listening to people's deepest secrets, their darkest fears, their greatest regrets. And I need to tell you something that's going to make you uncomfortable. Everything you've been taught about fixing yourself is completely wrong. The self-help industry, the motivational speakers, even most therapists, they're selling you a lie. And the worst part? You're buying it. You're spending your entire life trying to become someone you're not, and nobody's telling you the truth. Not your friends, not your family, and certainly not the people making money off your insecurity. I've sat across from over 3,000 people in my career. CEOs and janitors, celebrities and nobodies, young couples and dying grandparents. And you know what I discovered? The thing that destroys people isn't what you think it is. It's not trauma. It's not bad childhoods. It's not even mental illness. It's something far more insidious, and you're doing it to yourself right now. But before I tell you what it is, you need to understand why I'm making this video. I'm not doing this for views or money or recognition. I'm doing this because I'm running out of time to share what 47 years in this profession has taught me. And there's something you need to hear before it's too late. Not for me, for you. At 62, I had what I call my professional crisis. That's my term for the moment I realized I'd been perpetuating the same lie I'd been trained to tell. I was in my office, listening to a 45-year-old woman, successful lawyer, beautiful family, everything society says you should want, and she was sobbing, telling me she felt empty, that she'd done everything right and felt nothing. She kept asking, "What's wrong with me? Why can't I just be happy?" And in that moment, something broke inside me. Because I'd heard that exact question thousands of times before, different words, same desperation, and I'd been giving the same answers. Let's explore your childhood. Have you considered medication? What coping mechanisms can we develop? All the professional responses I was trained to give, but sitting there watching this woman fall apart, I realized something terrifying. I was helping her become better at being someone she was never meant to be. I was teaching her to cope with a life that was fundamentally wrong for her. And I'd been doing it for decades, to thousands of people, including myself. You know what happened next? I went home that night and couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the clients I'd seen over the years, the patterns, the common threads, and I realized the truth that's been staring me in the face my entire career. Here's the biggest lie you're telling yourself right now. Something's wrong with me that needs to be fixed. If I just work on myself enough, I'll finally be happy. If I read the right books, go to the right therapy, do the right self-improvement, then I'll become the person I'm supposed to be. Let me save you 20 years and $50,000 in therapy bills with one simple truth. You're not broken. You never were. You're just living a life that doesn't fit who you actually are. I see it every single day. People in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, sitting in my office saying the same things. When I overcome my anxiety, then I'll pursue my dreams. When I fix my depression, then I'll leave this job I hate. When I work through my issues, then I'll have the confidence to be myself. When I become a better version of me, then my life will start. That day never comes. You know why? Because you're not trying to become yourself. You're trying to become whoever your parents wanted you to be, whoever your spouse needs you to be, whoever society says you should be. You're spending your entire life trying to fit into a mold that was never made for you, and then wondering why you feel like you're suffocating. I did this. I spent 30 years trying to be the perfect therapist, the one who always had answers, who never struggled, who had it all figured out. I went to every conference, read every new book, learned every technique. I was chasing some ideal version of myself that didn't exist, and it was killing me from the inside. Here's something nobody tells you about self-improvement. It's a trap, and I say this as someone who built a career on it. You think you're working on yourself, but you're actually just reinforcing the belief that who you are right now isn't good enough. You're not healing, you're hiding. I had a client who died 2 years ago at 59. Smart guy, spent 23 years in therapy, went to workshops, did the inner child work, processed his trauma, worked on his boundaries, did everything right. And you know what he told me in our last session before the cancer diagnosis? I feel like I've spent my whole life preparing to live and I never actually started. That haunts me. Because I was his therapist for 11 of those years. And I was helping him prepare. Teaching him to cope, to manage, to become ready. I was part of the problem. Is that what you want? To spend your entire life getting ready to live? Your regrets won't be about the things you couldn't fix about yourself. They'll be about the life you didn't live while you were too busy trying to fix yourself. I don't lie awake at night thinking about therapeutic techniques I should have used differently. You know what keeps me up? The clients I helped adjust to miserable marriages instead of encouraging them to leave. The ones I taught to cope with soul-crushing jobs instead of finding work they loved. The dreams I heard about in session after session that I watched people never pursue because they were too busy working on themselves. The trip to Morocco that woman never took because she was still dealing with her fear of flying. The relationship my client never pursued because he was still working through his abandonment issues. The business that young woman never started because she was still building her confidence. The art that man never created because he was still healing his perfectionism. These things eat at you. The life you didn't live. The person you never became. The chances you didn't take because you were convinced you weren't ready yet. The years you spent in waiting rooms and therapy offices and self-help seminars, preparing for a life that was passing you by. The people you love, your parents, your children, your friends, you think you'll have time to really be yourself with them once you fix yourself. You won't. And one day, that time will run out, and they'll never know who you actually were because you were too busy pretending to be who you thought you should be. My mother died when I was 54. We had a difficult relationship. She wanted me to be a doctor, not a therapist. And I spent decades trying to prove to her that I'd made the right choice, that I was successful, that I was enough. I kept thinking we'd have time to just be honest with each other when I was more secure, when I felt less defensive, when I'd worked through my need for her approval. We never got that chance. Stroke. Gone in days. And you know my biggest regret? I never told her the truth. That I didn't become a therapist to help people. I became one because I was lost and thought learning about psychology would help me find myself. And it took me 30 years to realize I was looking in the wrong place. After my crisis at 62, I changed everything. Stopped trying to fix people. Started asking different questions. What life are you avoiding while you're working on yourself? What would you do if you accepted that you're already enough? What are you using self-improvement to hide from? In these last 9 years, I've learned more about healing than I did in the previous 47. Real healing isn't about fixing yourself. It's about accepting yourself completely, and then building a life that fits who you actually are. What matters is embarrassingly simple. Living authentically. Doing work that reflects your real values. Surrounding yourself with people who love the actual you. Creating instead of consuming. Being instead of becoming. I know it sounds simple. When you're in the thick of it, drowning in self-help books and therapy sessions and personal development courses, this sounds naive. Sure, but I have real issues. And yes, you do. I'm not saying therapy is useless. I'm saying don't confuse healing with hiding. Don't spend your life preparing to be yourself. Here's a question I want you to answer honestly. If you accepted right now that you're never going to be different than you fundamentally are, that this is it, this is you, what would you do differently? Not what would you work on? Not what would you try to change? Just what would you do? If the answer is different from what you're doing now, then what are you waiting for? What are you fixing that's so important that you're willing to gamble your one precious life on becoming some ideal version of yourself that doesn't exist? I'm 71 years old. I've listened to thousands of people's deepest truths. And here's what I know. The people who die with the most regrets aren't the ones who made mistakes. They're the ones who spent their entire lives trying to become someone they thought they should be, and never lived as who they actually were. I have colleagues who are still practicing in their 80s, still doing the work. But you know what I notice? The ones who are still vibrant, still engaged, still alive, they're not the ones who had it all figured out. They're the ones who admitted they didn't, who stopped pretending, who started living. I retired from full-time practice last year. And you know what? I'm doing things I spent 47 years putting off. Learning piano, writing the book I always wanted to write, spending real time with my grandchildren, not the quality time I scheduled. Real time, messy time, authentic time. I'm happier now at 71, accepting who I am than I was at 30, trying to become who I thought I should be. That's the irony. When you stop trying to fix yourself, you finally start living. You have a choice right now, today. Keep spending your life working on yourself, preparing to be ready, waiting to be enough. Or accept that you already are enough, exactly as you are, and start building a life that fits who you actually are instead of who you think you should be. I can't make this choice for you, but I can tell you, you don't want to be 71, looking back at thousands of hours spent in therapy and self-improvement, wishing you'd spent that time actually living. Because that's where I am right now, 71, looking back at decades of watching people, good people, smart people, deserving people, waste their lives in waiting rooms. And I was the one telling them to wait. Let's work on this a bit more. We're making progress. You're not quite ready yet. What was I preparing them for? Death? I think about the woman who spent 8 years working through her fear of public speaking before she finally felt ready to share her poetry. 8 years. She was 49 when she finally did her first reading. Died at 53. 4 years, that's what she got. 4 years of actually living after 49 years of preparing. I think about the man who spent his entire 30s in therapy dealing with his childhood before he felt ready to date seriously. Met someone at 42, married at 44. They had 7 good years before she left him. He's alone now at 56, and you know what he told me? I wish I'd started living at 30 instead of starting to prepare to live at 30. These stories are everywhere, in my files, in my memory, people who waited, who prepared, who worked on themselves, and then ran out of time. Don't waste decades figuring this out. Don't be another story I tell. Don't be another person I failed by helping them become better at living the wrong life. Learn from my mistakes and the mistakes of the thousands of people I've listened to over nearly 5 decades in this profession. You're not broken. Stop trying to fix yourself. You were never supposed to be fixed. You were supposed to be yourself, raw, imperfect, real, messy, authentic. That's what life is. That's what connection is. That's what love is. All those flaws you're trying to eliminate, those issues you're working through, they're not bugs in your programming. They're features. They're what makes you human. They're what makes you interesting. They're what makes you you. Start living as yourself, not the self you're trying to become. The self you are right now, today, this moment, with all your fears and insecurities and rough edges and imperfections. That's the person who deserves to live. That's the person people want to know. That's the person you've been hiding while you work on your better version. Right now, today. Not next month when you finish that course. Not next year when you've processed your trauma. Not when you lose the weight or get the promotion or feel more confident or overcome your anxiety or fix your attachment style or heal your inner child. Now. Not when you're ready. Now. Because you know what? You'll never feel completely ready. That's the secret they don't tell you. Readiness is a feeling you chase forever. It's another goalpost that keeps moving. Another carrot dangled in front of you to keep you on the hamster wheel of self-improvement. I've been a therapist for 47 years. I've never met anyone who felt ready. The people who live full lives? They're not ready. They're just willing. They're just brave enough to be themselves despite not being ready. They're just honest enough to admit they'll never be perfect and live anyway.